Irreducible complexity is another problem with evolution. A system or a machine or a life form or a part of a life form is said to be irreducibly complex when it is so intricate that in order for it to function at all of its members have to be present. In order for it to function at all, every single part of it has to be present. So the classic example that you'll most likely see in a textbook about this is a mousetrap. And there's actually 5 parts to a mousetrap, and they're all required. If you take one away, it stops working. You're like, okay, big deal, Michael. What does this have to do with the teleological argument? Well, this poses a really big problem for evolution. Here's why. Mutations and DNA recombinations produce small changes. They produce small changes. A change without any function or advantage has no mechanism for selection. So if you were to picture a house, and somehow houses reproduce, and somehow we finally get a house that has just the baseboard for a mousetrap in it, because if you don't have any mice in you, then you'd be a better house and you could survive better. There's no basis for that house to have an advantage over another house because all it has is just the baseboard of a mousetrap. It would have to go on and go on and go on and be selected for, and then maybe get the hammer, and then go on and get the spring, and then get the place where you put the cheese. So each one of these parts would have to almost come instantaneously, which doesn't happen with DNA recombinations or mutations. Is that? Yes? Yeah? Okay. I see some people scratching their heads. So we're going to see a video on this, and hopefully it'll explain it a little bit better. And here's the video. So here's the video, and Jonathan, could you get the lights for us?
In his study of evolution and molecular machines, Michael Behe has raised a significant challenge to the creative power of Darwin's mechanism of natural selection. It is called irreducible complexity. Irreducible complexity can be illustrated by a familiar, non-biological machine, a mousetrap. The trap is composed of 5 basic pieces: a catch to hold the bait, a strong spring, a thin bent rod called the hammer, a holding bar to secure the hammer in place, and a platform upon which the entire system is mounted. If any one of these parts is missing or defective, the mechanism will not work. All components of this irreducibly complex system must be present simultaneously for the machine to perform its function. Catching mice. The concept of irreducible complexity also applies to biological machines, including the bacterial flagellum.
All told, there are about 40 different protein parts which are necessary for this machine to work. And if any of those parts are missing, then either you get a flagellum that doesn't work because it's missing the hook or it's missing the drive shaft or whatever, or it doesn't even get built within the cell. You can't put something like that together gradually because they need a large number of parts interacting with each other at the same time before they work at all. Most people have no idea of how small and complex cells are. A typical cell from you or me, called a eukaryotic cell, is probably 1/10 of the size of the head of a pin. And yet in that single cell, there are about 3 billion units of DNA making out the chromosomes. And those 3 billion units make the molecular machines of the cell, literally machines that make the cell work.
With computer animation, we can enter the cell. Here, the staggering complexity of its molecular machinery is clearly seen.
It's like going into an automobile factory. The factory has a large number of machines. The parts have to fit together in very specific ways to do their jobs, and if things go wrong, the cell is in big trouble. and just one cell is enormously complex, but humans, you and I, are made from trillions of cells, and those trillions of cells have to fit together in the right way and do their own job. Darwinism was a lot more plausible when we were thinking about globs of protoplasm than it is when we're thinking about molecular machines.
All right, that's, I was going to say right as it was starting, courtesy of Ben Stein, courtesy of Charlie Summers. He got sent a resource CD since he's a biology teacher at a Christian school. So yeah, does that help you with irreducible complexity? It's just, there's too many parts for it to just happen on its own. They all have to be there and from the same multiple mutations all at once, and it's just, the statistics behind that says zero. It's not going to happen. Another problem with evolution is the fossil record. And so before we delve into the fossil record, we need to ask, how old is the Earth? How old is the Earth? Now, if you ask that question, you're going to either get one of two answers. 3.5 billion years, or somewhere between 6 and 10,000 years. Now, I've actually come full circle on this personally. Started out as young Earth, and then during the college age, switched over to old Earth. Now I'm back to young Earth. And for me personally, I was talking with a gentleman, and he was saying, well, why not create it in an instant? Why 6 days? You know, God can do anything, right? And then I was thinking about that. And if we had a team of scientists and medical examiners there right when Adam was created and they were to test him, do you think their test would have revealed that he was 30 years old or that he was 2 minutes old? He would probably look to everyone that could tell 30 years old, because I believe God created Adam in a mature state. I personally believe God created the earth and the universe in a mature state, because we do have evidences that age exists. There's some radioactive evidences. There's other, radioactive to me is the strongest evidence. But like I said, I believe that God can create, anything's possible. Nothing is impossible with God, so everything is possible. However, I have seen infighting in Christians over this very issue. And so, just like with any set of doctrines, there's some things on which we should not budge. And there's some things that I think we need to have grace with our fellow believers. So here's what I would not budge on with a fellow believer: that God is the creator. He created it. 2, the Bible is inerrant. So if for some reason, if I'm wrong and the earth is much older, then there's something wrong with my view of those first passages. You know, maybe those have been translated. But I know for a fact that when Moses wrote that down the first time, it was inerrant from God himself. And then if there is, for some reason, if the earth is old, then there's something between the time that Moses wrote that down and our scripture today that has changed it so it looks like it's a 24-hour period. But I know that the Bible is inerrant because I believe God is true. And I believe that when he says that all scripture is breathed from God, I believe that. And so there's something wrong with man if we have a misunderstanding with God, right? So God is the creator, the Bible is inerrant, and God created and did not use natural processes. So God didn't use evolution to bring about life. He created ex nihilo, just like the Bible said. And if the earth is old, then he did it at certain points in time. Now, why do we need to have this discussion before we talk about the fossil record? Because the video that we're going to see and the scientists that you're going to read and talk to, most of them have an old Earth view. So they're going to talk about fossil records, and they're going to talk about the Jurassic period and the Cambrian period. And then there's the Cambrian explosion, what you'll hear. And that's a period in time when the life on Earth just went crazy in our fossil record. Crazy as in, bam, there's a lot of life forms. To me, a young Earth guy, I think this is evidences of the flood. A lot of animals got laid between water and sediment just like this, and now we have a whole bunch of strata formed from these animals. That's me. I'm going to deal with grace with those who think otherwise, although I think they're wrong.